There's been a bunch of news in AI recently about AI's impact on analysts' jobs, specifically in finance. I think it was Morgan Stanley that was talking about this, and a lot of people are kind of chatting about it. Connor, what are you seeing in this space?
This is huge, and this goes to sort of like why we do this, Jaden, right? The AI Applied podcast. Like it's, New York Times had a great article, kind of quoting, unnamed sources, but it's a reputable organization, I think. Unnamed high-level sources from Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley saying, look, we may actually be able to cut down our analyst class for by like a third or 2/3 of some of this. And like even the people who stay behind, the job will be way easier. So maybe we can pay them less. And that kind of dovetailed with, Jamie Dimons, CEO of JP Morgan, who came out with the annual letter saying, look, this is, AI is going to be like electricity and the steam and basically everything that it could possibly be. He was like, it's like that. And I don't know, Jaden, to me, it's just like with all this news coming out, I get asked the question all the time. You probably do too. What does this do to jobs? Like, what do we do? Like, what's happening with all this kind of stuff? And to me, like, these aren't just quote unquote jobs, right? These are, and not to sort of like, not that any one job is better than another one, but just for context, I work in a business school. These are jobs that people.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Forget the frustration of picking commerce platforms when you switch your business to Shopify, the global commerce platform that supercharges your selling wherever you sell. With Shopify, you'll harness the same intuitive features, trusted apps, and powerful analytics used by the world's leading brands. Sign up today for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/tech, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/tech.
Kill themselves to get into a business school just to get, and then they get into the job and they kill themselves, et cetera, because it's a career path. And the fact that this is sort of like almost like wiping a giant like stepping stone, not off the map exactly, but I wanted to talk about it just briefly because it doesn't feel like hype. It feels like this is just what this thing can do. And I don't know, when you kind of hear news like that, like how does it strike you in terms of like the future of AI and jobs and everything else? Because it's a big, big question.
Yeah, so I actually have an interesting perspective on this, right? So you'll hear you hear different sides of this camp, and I'll tell you where I kind of sit on this. But there's a lot of people that are like, you kind of alluded to it, like, oh my gosh, the AI makes this easier, so maybe we can pay people less, and how's that going to impact? Maybe we need less people, and we're paying them less. It's possible that some of these new people coming in, they'll start at lower salaries. I don't think anyone that's already in the career is going to be like, okay, guys, here's some new tools that's easier. We're giving you like a 30% pay cut. I don't see this happening. As far as economics goes and what I've basically seen from other, you could call it like technical revolutions or, industrial revolutions, when a tool comes along that has such an outsized impact, which this does, I'm not like debating that, it has a massive impact, let's say it makes this easier. What I tend to see is the analysts that are in the job today are going to be 30% more productive. And so it doesn't mean that they're like, oh, the 30% more productive, let's pay them 30% more. They might continue to get paid like the same amount, but if they can perform at 30% higher level and create 30% higher outputs or whatever, take on more customers, analyze more data, whatever their roles are, if they're being more productive, that doesn't necessarily mean they have to change how much they're getting paid. So I think a lot of the fear around like, oh my gosh, they're going to lower how much we're getting paid or they're going to fire us. I think what tends to happen is the firms will grow. Maybe they won't take on as many people initially as there's kind of like that equilibrium that has to be met. So it could kind of be a little bit of a freeze on new hires. But I really tend to think that these firms grow with the new innovation and then things kind of regulate and get back to normal and it continues. And they're just more productive, I think, overall.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I was thinking about that Bill Gates quote today. I think it was Bill Gates who was like, we overestimate what AI or tech will do in a year and underestimate what it'll do in 10 years. And I think this is kind of a classic example of that. Like when I go out and talk to companies and I do a lot of company training and stuff like that, like, the thing that I sort of like say, like first train the leadership, so the leadership really understands what this is, then do benchmarks for the organization, what they should be. Second, train the team and inspire the team. But third, look at reorging, but I don't mean like it kind of exactly as you described. Like I say, start with hiring. Like you aren't going to have to hire for the same kind of skills anymore. So that's an easy way to start and an easy place to start. But you're right. I don't think it's necessarily around the corner. But I do think that the folks who are, hopefully listening to this podcast or paying attention to this space, I think what you and I try to do a lot is just, I don't want to say dumb it down, but just like let's figure out ways that people can practically get started. Because if you can get started now, you are not going to be caught off guard. And look, that whole expression of AI is, AI won't replace somebody using AI it's not wrong. Do you know what I mean? Like if you are sort of producing at just a much higher rate because you have this other tool that you can use, I mean, that's impactful. And just the fact that though that it was all coming out, all this news coming out, and sure, unnamed sources, but I trust the sources, and Jamie Dimon was not an unnamed source, coming out and saying this is the position. And it was just such a position that I think people historically have worked so hard to get, that it just makes me think, like, if it's kind of coming for that, like, what do people need to know now? And that's something I think about all the time. Like, Jaden, when you think about that, like, what do people need to know now about this space? You're building AI bots to sort of like, obviously, create easier workflows for people. Like, what do you think people need to know now?
I mean, I think the number one thing to focus on is really looking at, if you're an organization, what AI tools can we be using today to augment what we're doing? And if you're an employee or, someone working in an organization, you need to have the exact same mentality, right? If you're the person that's leveraging AI, that's becoming more productive, that's upskilling yourself, and that's, you're going to stand out from the pack, you're going to really shine. And I think overall, you have kind of this window right now where not everyone is leveraging these tools as much as they can. And if you're the person that does, you're going to put yourself and your career on such a trajectory. I mean, even myself, and I know you, Connor, like embracing AI from the beginning and figure out ways to implement it and use it, not be fearful of it, has helped both of us in our careers in huge ways. So I think really having that mindset is a massive element of this that I would just, encourage people to continue to have.
That's huge, and let me just sort of like add to that one more sentence on that too. Folks, when you see like the statistics of like, this many people are using it, and it's this really high number. Or when I go into companies and they're like, we know we're way behind. You're not behind. I mean, it's just when people say they are quote unquote using it, it's because they've like written a few emails and things like that. Like, this is still such a wide open field. I like beg people. I'm like, if you can just learn the basics of AI, learn that this is a behavioral change, learn that you actually don't need any tech to really master a large language model and really use it to change your job. But what you really need to do is understand what you need to do, understand how to ask that question, and how to sort of just keep on iterating with it as if it's a person. I know you hear that over and over again. The reason it's hard is because the brain doesn't want to treat it like a person. And that's why it's a behavioral change, not a sort of like learning a new tech or something like that. But I just want to kind of like just sort of second Jaden's sort of comment here, which is, you are not behind. This is the moment. You still have tons of time. Like, get on this now, because it's really going to change your work and also your team's work, right?
100%. If you enjoyed the podcast episode today, make sure to leave us a review wherever you listen to your podcast. We appreciate you tuning in, and we hope that you all have an amazing rest of your day.